Kenya now will look at ways to enforce a capital tax gains as it seeks to shore up revenues in the face of ever-growing demands for cash to fund expanded government and development projects. This emerged at today's budget presentation by Finance Minister Henry Rotich. Joining us now to discuss the budget's economic appeal is Kwame Owino, CEO of the Institute of Economic Affairs, as well as Hadija Nanomo, Senior Manager for Taxes at Ernst & Young. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening.
Good evening.
Let me throw the question out just in terms of the boldness of the budget. Of course, we're seeing one of what has been said, the most bold budget that Kenya has seen in a while. What are the big spend items that have been noted in the minister's budget? And then let's throw this question to Kwame.
I'm not too sure. I think the hype about this being the bold budget is one that I do not personally agree with. In many ways, it's consistent with the budget seasons we've had over years. I think the most bold thing is that yes, there's a significant upscale in total expenditure. But as usual, it's a budget that spends a huge amount of money, cuts in and distributes it across various arms of government, and at the same time spends incrementally on social programs and all that. So to that extent, you can say, yes, we are spending more money, in nominal terms at least, in many other places. And of course also supporting the big ticket items that the Jubilee government, the administration in place today, undertook to support. One of them being, of course, expanding irrigation, spending money on education, but more specifically providing equipment for laptop, and some money has been placed for that. But boldness, on the basis of the statements seen today and some of the data that's available, I'd be cautious to say that.
So cautious to say that it is bold, but of course one of the things that stands out is the fact that almost a quarter of the budget, 24% if I'm not mistaken, has been allocated to energy and ICT infrastructure. Hadija, this question to you, do you feel that this is an adequate reflection of where the government priorities are as we speak?
If you look at the government priorities and what Kenya is, or what most of the East African countries are, they are basically agricultural countries. They are agro-based, and most of the key areas are to do with agriculture and promotion of agriculture, which is supposed to help spearhead and push forward the growth of the economies. But if you look at agriculture, it's one of the ministry or the sectors whose budget was actually reduced. So if you're looking at priorities and fulfilling what the vision is all about, it's a bit hard to judge what exactly it is if you look at the allocations, who has been given more, which sector has been given more, and which has been given less.
So to some extent, Hadija, you're saying that there seems to be a bit of a mismatch between what the government priorities have been noted as and the budget that has been presented today.
Exactly. If you look at education, it has been given an extra budget which is quite high, and it's one of the top areas that have been prioritized. But the major thing is to provide free education, which has always been provided, and to enhance ICT development. But in terms of education and where we want it to be, are we going to see it in the near future? Is this a short-term or a long-term project?
Kwame, let me bring
Some of those are the mismatches we're seeing.
Absolutely. Kwame, let me bring you back into the conversation and look at the revenue streams that are expected to support this budget. Where is the funding expected to come from?
Well, I think again that's part of the reason I say that the statements about this budget being bold is actually is overstatement. Regular, I think most of it will come from ordinary revenue split between income tax, personal income tax, corporate taxation, and VAT. Of course, the rest will come from grants, and the other bigger one actually is in terms of borrowing, both external and internal borrowing. And if you look at the amount that is being redeemed, or rather in terms of debt being paid back and how much is being borrowed, an extra almost as much as more than 50% of the amount of money that's being paid forward is being paid for, is again being borrowed. So that is part of the reason I am reluctant to accept the idea of boldness. But three sources mainly. Revenues expected from ordinary, what government calls ordinary revenue, which is basically the taxes, various forms. What is called appropriations in aid, which are basically service fees and all that government or departments earn on their own, and the rest is borrowing, both domestic and foreign, and a small amount of grants, which I wasn't able to plug out of the numbers that have been provided so far. It may require a little more time.
Hadija, sticking to the question of the revenue streams and specifically zooming into the question of taxes that potentially will be levied on the private sector to try and raise some of these funds, your reaction to the impact this is likely to have on the business attractiveness in Kenya?
In terms of the taxes, the East African community countries have come together and formed what is called the East African community. So when they are looking at revenue streams and which areas to tax and which areas not to tax, they're doing a lot of consultation, which is a good thing. But again, the key issues out of this budget are the indirect taxes. And indirect taxes include value-added tax, which is significantly going to be affected. And the impact is going to be reducing the areas which were not taxed or taxed at a zero rate. What this means is that the products or the prices of major products, especially the necessities, are going to go up. And again, we need investment into the country. When investors come into the country, there's always been remission, reduction of duties for them to enhance their development and faster growth. But all this seems to be going to be done away with, and that may negatively impact investment. If you look at another area, which is normally called sin tax, excise duties, these, if we take a country like Uganda, they've levied a lot of excise duty on different commodities. We've seen an increase in cigarette taxes. We've seen a reintroduction of excise duty on kerosene, which had been banned. We've seen an increase on excise duty on petroleum products. So basically, when you look at the themes of the budgets, they are raising revenue, but again, they seem to be deterring the investor from coming in.